Welcome to the Florida Today newsroom. I'm Matt Reed. Today we give you a progress report on the Brevard County economy with Florida Today business editor Wayne Price. Wayne has the latest numbers on jobs and property values. Are they good news for you? Wayne also has fresh insight on holiday shopping and how it has changed this year for Space Coast retailers. Also coming up in the program, Florida Today columnist and staff writer Britt Kennerly shares the story behind a recent series on aging alone. Britt describes the realization that triggered her in-depth reporting. She shares what you and I can do to help some of the 30,000 seniors living alone in Brevard. First, let's tend to business with Wayne Price. Wayne, bring us up to speed. How does the economy looking here in Brevard County? Jobs, other.
So far, Matt, it's going pretty well. Last week we got a jobs report, and the data showed the unemployment rate fell from 7.2% in September to 7% in October, which I guess that's good. But the reason for the decline was that the workforce shrank. And that's really not the way that you want unemployment to go down, because there's fewer people in the workforce. And over the year, we lost probably about 1,100 people in the workforce.
Why would the workforce here shrink? Is it because people are retiring? Is it because they're moving away?
Probably a lot of those factors. I think those numbers are going to bounce back we'll see in November, December, as retailers pick people up for the holidays. So you'll see a lot of those jobs come back.
Right.
And there are these kind of fluctuations each year with the workforce shrinking and then growing again. That's just kind of the choppiness to this recovery.
Sounds like we're a little bit lower than the national average though right now.
National average is right around 7% too. The state of Florida as a whole is 6.7%. So we're below the national average, and Governor Scott's whether he should or not is taking a lot of credit for that, and he has a tough election coming up, so he's going to grasp anything he can on the jobs front. Well,
it definitely is the one thing working in his favor right now, and given that Florida was a percentage point higher than the rest of the country through much of the recession, that's pretty good news.
Right. Yeah.
What about housing? I mean, that's the big thing that a lot of us measure our wealth by.
Yeah, I think housing, there's really some good news here. I described the jobs picture as lackluster, but it's really spinning along nicely on the housing front. And the sales over the year were up 9%, which is really good. And we've had those kind of figures for the last year now. The median sale price was up nearly 3.5% to $120,000. So, people's homes are more valuable than they were a year ago, and that's really good news. And some other points that I saw in the report that I thought were interesting is that people are getting about 94% of their asking price, and that's slightly ahead of last year when it was about 93%. And the homes, they stay on the market for about a month. And that's about what it was a year ago also. But what's really interesting is the number of people that are paying cash for homes. And the number in the latest report, 10% of all sales were cash sales. And so I asked some real estate people in the area, what's going on here? And they said it's a lot of foreign investors that are pouring money into this community. And it's investors from Europe, it's investors from South America, and surprisingly, it's investors from China.
Is that right?
And they don't plan to live here. They're renting these houses. They're renting these houses out to homeowners, and the realtor told me they see a payoff in buying these homes. Now, the downside of that is probably keeping some other people out of the market, because they can come in with cash and pay for a home while other people are still struggling to get their mortgages figured out and get pre-approved for mortgages.
As long as you're the person selling, though.
Correct, yeah.
Whoever's buying it, you just want to know some of the other figures that you cited there. How long is my home going to be on the market? Am I going to be close, in terms of my price? And those things sound like they're doing pretty well.
Now, something else too on the new home side, if you drive around the Vieira area, Stadium Parkway, you'll see a couple new housing developments that the Vieira company is putting together. And the Vieira company doesn't build on spec, so they know there's a market out there for these new homes, and they're in the 200,000 plus range, and they think that's going to pay off sooner than later. And then also in West Melbourne, next week they're going to break ground on a 1,000 single-family home project called, I think it's called Sawgrass. Called Sawgrass Lakes, and that's a D.R. Horton project. And that's a big deal. So in D.R. Horton, like the Vieira company, they go out and they do their market research and their demographics. So they see something big that's going to happen in Brevard. probably on the jobs front, a lot of retirees. So I think that's good news.
So good indicators on a couple of the top things here. Of course, it's holiday season,
Right.
and your section did a profile recently on the 5 things that every shopper ought to know going into this season. One of them was kind of, I guess, sizing up the competition and pressure out there. Are consumers around us going to be more cautious or spending more, do you think?
Speaking for myself, I'm going to be more cautious, but I think what they found was that consumers have got used to finding good deals, and I think retailers know that. And so what you had was kind of a scenario of retailers coming out much earlier than the traditional Black Friday with sales. They were calling them pre-Thanksgiving Day sales, and they were doing these sales a month ahead of time, and consumers were snapping those sales up. And and it's really funny because then that showed up, as you saw, a lot of retailers opened up on Thanksgiving also. There was some controversy surrounding that. You get the Macy's, the Targets, the Kmart's, the Sears, the JCPenney. They've never opened up on Thanksgiving before, but here they were, this sacred holiday or family day, and they had to, because they were facing so much competition from online and from some other people that were getting their sales out earlier. And what we found was the data that came out, I think it came out today or yesterday, was that there were more shoppers this year than in past years, about 1 million more shoppers, but sales were down about 3% over last year.
So when they're talking about people being more cautious, it may not necessarily be that they're not enthusiastic or not optimistic, but they are looking for better prices, better values for themselves. It might take a little bit more time.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is that when they settle up all the accounts at the end of the year, I think the sales might rise 1% to 2% ahead of last year. But because sales were down this year, it's because people were buying so much earlier and taking advantage of these deals that they didn't really see anything that knocked their socks off when they went out Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday and Small Business Saturday and on Sunday. Now, today's Cyber Monday. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know Amazon and some of the other online retailers are really pushing that, with free shipping and other incentives to get people out there to spend money.
Well, one of the other questions that your story posed was, does Black Friday still matter anymore? I mean, is pretty much the entire span of time between the day before Thanksgiving or two all the way to Christmas, is that just one great big Black Friday?
Personally, I've heard mixed things on that. I think it's been diluted an awful lot. Some people say it's never going to go away, but the idea of it, what we associate with it, of getting up 4 in the morning on a Friday and go waiting in line at Toys R Us, I think those days are going to be over sooner than later.
I have done that, and I would like them to be over sooner rather than later. You've written recently about restaurants, lots of openings. I won't ask you to recite that list because
Right.
I'm sure that was took some effort to put them together. But in that list and in your research, are you seeing any trends? Are we coming back with more, or are there new niches that are being filled?
I've seen a lot more niches. I mean, the restaurant world's kind of funky. You'll have a restaurant come in, it may last 2 or 3 months, then go away. I think what you're seeing is, what we call fast casual. I think those are still holding strong, as are the chain restaurants like the Outbacks, the Bonefish Grills. Those are still holding strong. But it seems like for every restaurant that goes away, independently operated, another one will pop right back up after it. But that's a tough business. It really is. And
every time we get a new restaurant open on the beach side over in Satellite Beach or Indian Harbor Beach, somebody in my family will say, "Oh, we're getting a so-and-so." And I said, that's not how you think about restaurants here. You have to think about them as sort of month-long special events.
Right.
They come, you enjoy them for a little while, then they go away, and somebody else comes into the spot to give it a whirl sooner or later.
Right. Beachside's kind of tough because you got kind of a closed audience there on the beach side. When you're on land side, you can go up and down 95 easy enough and try out different places. But it's a little bit different on the beach side.
Although Long Doggers, you pointed out, one of our beachside institutions has now opened up in Vera.
Yeah, that's really a neat story. And I really like those guys. Those are a couple surfers from Florida Tech that started that many years ago. And for being surfers, and I hope I'm not generalizing here, these are really smart business guys. And they've grown very slowly, very smart over the years, not too fast. They They picked their targets where they wanted to grow, and what I've heard is, at some point in the next 5 years, they want to move into Orange County and some of those other markets. But again, they're going to do it very slowly, and they're going to do it where it makes sense. And I went to the new one over in Vieira, and just there's people lined up outside the door. But they had been looking at that area for 5 years. So, they took their time, find a good piece of land at a good price, at a good location. And they had other opportunities to build at some other places, but they just waited until they found one that made sense.
And they're owning it, owning each of these at this point.
Yes, yes.
Interesting. You wrote this past Sunday about Walmart. What is it about Walmart that makes some people so angry?
I don't know, and that's a tough one, because it's. I talked to one of the retail people that I quoted my story. He goes, Walmart is us. We're the consumer. We made Walmart the success that it is. So it's kind of hard for us to turn around and be angry with them. And a little bit, I think, is we're kind of angry at their success. We're angry because we're dependent on them almost, because of their prices and their abundance.
And they take bad press for things like wages and prices and the sourcing of their goods and things like that. But we're the people that are getting by spending less.
And I think it's because they're probably the big dog. And I think that's why. If you notice in the fast food industry, it's McDonald's always gets the heat in the fast food side. But I don't know if McDonald's is any worse than Wendy's or Burger King, but you never hear about them. You always hear about McDonald's and their wages. And I think it's the same thing with Walmart. You never really hear about Target, and I can't imagine the wage difference is that much between the two.
So a labor group or somebody that wants to make something a cause and wants to hold up a big business as an example probably is looking at Walmart as go after the big fish because everyone will want to pay attention.
Now, what I understand was that they want to have these mass protests on Black Friday. I think that kind of fizzled out on a national level. And the group that was organizing it won't say, how many walkouts there were, other than it was, quote, successful.
You went and tested it out at a Walmart here in Brevard County. What did you see?
I saw Americana. I saw, people in nice clothes, people in not so nice clothes, people being friendly, people not being so friendly. And it's like that every store. I was most impressed, though, with the people that work there. Very efficient. Not overly happy, but certainly not rude to their customers, and they know their jobs well, and they get their jobs done, and they move on, and that's really all you can expect from a retailer.
The place is clean, the prices are low.
They have plenty of inventory, and if you have to take something back, it's very few questions asked. You got your receipt, even if you don't have your receipt. You can just take something back real quickly, and you're out the door. And I don't know what else you can ask for.
And then, of course, you took a chance to look at some of the workers during a break there. Anything different about them? Were they, exhausted or happy?
What's funny about Walmart is, that's one of the few places. The Walmart that I went to is where you park your car is also where all the employees hang out. So you have a little bit more interaction when they're off the clock there. Where if you go to some other places, break rooms are upstairs or in the back, and the general public doesn't really see that. But at the Walmart, you do see that. I can't say that they were out playing volleyball and jumping through hoops when I went out there and everyone was smiling. No.
It's not Google with free, with napping pods.
Definitely not Google.
Free yogurt.
Like I said, it was like before. People knew their jobs. They knew they had a break, and they had to get back to work, and then they want to go home. So.
Well, they'll be working hard this holiday season, and maybe their jobs will stick around and keep that unemployment rate low for us. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
Remember, if you're looking for the best deals, nothing beats the coupons and circulars in your local newspaper. You're welcome, boss. Now let's hear from Florida Today reporter Britt Kennerly about her multimedia series, Aging Alone. The series explored the challenges and triumphs of seniors as they cope with loneliness and find new missions later in life. Britt, thanks for joining us. How did you get turned on to the Aging Alone project in the first place?
Well, first of all, I obviously cover that beat. I work on issues of aging and talk a lot with our senior population here. But last year I attended a workshop presented by Brevard Commission on Aging, and they met with county commissioners and the public about what we can do to better serve our seniors here in Brevard. And that included everything from a concept called aging in place, which is keeping people at home as long as possible in a happy, healthy, safe environment, and how that benefits the whole community. So after that workshop and everything I learned, that was in August of 2012, by early January we were talking here among the editors and our staff about how we could best reach out to our senior population in ways that we weren't doing so. And we wound up focusing on the senior population who live alone. And
there's some 30,000 of them here in Brevard County.
30,000 people 65 or older living alone, and I'm not talking living on their own in assisted living or something like that. I'm talking about they get up every day at home in their own apartment or condo or home with no one there within arm's reach to help them.
So this project that you did included some videos and very moving profiles every day that looked at some different people in different circumstances who are aging alone. How did you find them?
Well, that was, I sort of turned to the thing I always do. I love to talk, as anyone in the newsroom can tell you, and I just got out and started talking with people. And I have to say that video journalist Craig Rubidoux, my partner in this project, was just incredible. We went to senior centers, we went to community centers. We basically went where seniors go. And we also turned to Aging Matters in Brevard, our lead agency here for a wide array of senior services. And we talked to United Way. We just got out and talked to people who work with seniors, and we went looking for seniors. And I have to tell you that in one case, one of our interviewees was a man who had called me every Tuesday, almost for the last year and a half. He always wanted to talk about my column, and he wanted to discuss the morning's news. And so I got to know him, but there he was, living alone, and at 90, after losing his wife of 63 years.
We're going to show our viewers one of your clips. Is it Angelina?
Angelina Burns.
Okay, Angelina Burns. Here's Angelina Burns and her view about living alone.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Before she even gets out of bed in the morning, Angelina Burns has already done her daily exercises. At 96 years old, she wants to stay limber and strong, so she has no mishaps when getting out of bed.
Whatever I can do, I have things all over trying to keep me active so that I don't become stiff. And I don't want to fall. I have canes all over the house so I don't fall.
Angelina does 20 repetitions of several different exercises.
I exercise, I hate it. I'll tell you truthfully, I hate it, but I exercise. I don't want to wind up in a wheelchair.
Once her feet hit the floor, her daily routine begins. Before eating breakfast, she feeds her dog Rocky and lets him outside.
And then I look at TV, and then the Meals on Wheels come, and if I feel like eating nut, I put it in the refrigerator. And then if I don't feel like doing anything, I go to put on my books, and I listen to my books. And then it's about 3 o'clock, I get up. If I'm hungry, then I'll heat my food up. And then I make sure that Rocky has his supper. Then we look at TV again, and then it comes 8 o'clock, and so I say, well, I'll go listen to my book. The next thing I know, I wake up, the book is going, and I'm fast asleep. I have to rewind the book back again to where it was when I went to sleep. And that's it.
Because of her physical limitations, Angelina doesn't get out much anymore.
I can't go out, I can't walk too far. I can't see. And I have to be very, very careful. In my house, I know where everything is. I know exactly where everything is, and I know how to get along. Outside, I have to be extremely careful. I go outside once in a while. I talk to the... They think I'm nuts.
Angelina was born August 26, 1917 in New York City. She was one of 8 children.
At 11 years old, I worked for a family who had a baby. I was a babysitter. I did housework. I did scrubbing floors. I did windows. On the 3rd floor, sat out there, did the windows, waved at people, and had a ball. Went to school, to Erasmus, Bay Ridge. Then I came home to my mother, and I went to Harran High School and graduated out of there. And I've always worked. Whenever I got a job, to do something to be able to eat, to buy a pair of shoes, to wear a coat.
After what she describes as a painful first marriage, Angelina met her second husband in New Jersey when she was 50. Angelina was widowed in her mid-80s. She was able to maintain her independence until she took a fall off a bus. Her doctor's office helped her get in contact with Aging Matters in Brevard. The senior-based nonprofit provides her with a variety of services throughout the week.
I get Meals on Wheels, and I think I have 5 of the sweetest people that you could ever have. They all bought me presents for my birthday. The people treat me like I was something.
Angelina has been a client with us for at least 3 years, and I've been working with her, and she's just a wonderful lady. She's been a real joy in our lives. I know our volunteer drivers like to take her places, and she's just full of energy and is very honest about who she is.
Angelina welcomes the help because she never had children. She has some distant relatives in the Northeast, but none who live close by and can help her on a daily basis.
I regretted not having children right now because I'm alone. And everybody, second cousin, third cousins, whatever you want to call them, nieces, nephews, they all have children. They all have something to fall back on. I have nothing. I have to rely on people like Connie. I have to rely on anybody who has a kind heart, has an empathy for the aged. I don't look for money. I don't look for anything. All I look is for a little companion, somebody to talk to. Have you ever been alone? You never want to spend time alone. Never. Very sad.
Okay, so beyond the video for Angelina, what can you tell me about people that are in her circumstances? What did you have in common with some of the others that you met?
Just the isolation and the fear of, well, not just the fear of isolation or being alone. They can handle that to some degree, and there is a certain liberation in being able to stay alone on your own and live the life that you've always lived, surrounded by your things, even if you've lost a loved one, a spouse, for example, of many years. But they all had in common a fear of no longer being able to be alone. That dreaded fear, I think most of us have heard it from childhood of, I don't want to be a burden to someone, or I don't want to go to a nursing home. One of our interviews—
I don't want to feel helpless.
Exactly, because when that's taken from you, that's your last vestige of independence. You don't want to be totally dependent on another person, even though you would love to have other people in your life. And one of the best examples of that is that man I was talking about who calls me a lot. He told us he would rather do anything than be wearing a diaper and having soup ladled into his mouth. And I think that struck home for so many readers who told me they felt exactly the same way.
One of the things that he said and put a highlight on to me was any long-term couple, any married for life couple, one of them is going to pass away first, leaving the other to get on alone. And that is, it's got to be hard on some in terms of depression, being disoriented. Sometimes if they were the caregiver for the other spouse, they can lose their mission in life. And that seemed like one of the things that really stood out to me. Well, what are some of the ways that people like you or I or anybody watching this program can help?
Cindy Flockmeyer, who is the president and CEO of Aging Matters, told me something that really struck home for me. She said that it can be as simple as just speaking to someone who needs help in a grocery store. It can be looking around and watching people in your church and seeing that woman who leaves alone every Sunday afternoon and you don't know where she's going, but she just has that look that tells you she's going home to an empty house. You might start talking to her and wind up taking her to lunch. That's happened for Cindy with neighbors and friends. I know my own mother-in-law, in her last few months after she'd been alone for 30 years, she told me she just craved a hug, a touch, a phone call. And a phone call is so simple, and we often don't think about that when we're working full-time every day. We don't think about even our own parents who are sitting somewhere just craving that 2-minute phone call that, Mom, I love you, I'm thinking about you today. And so just take that and just reach out to neighbors in that way. Reach out to the friends of neighbors who are those ones on that bus headed to that senior center. If you can't be at that senior center to serve them lunch, you can definitely be someone who volunteers in some capacity to help fix the lunch, or to make a phone call to those people once a week if you have time and they're open for it.
Sometimes it's just the nice part of just talking and being around each other and having some conversation that's the real difference maker, not necessarily having them feel like they have to rely on you to help do their chores in some way, although I'm sure they could probably benefit from that as well.
Well, and that often works out really well too, that you'll invite someone into your home that you never expected to be there. Angelina Burns, for example, she knows her Meals on Wheels drivers. They show up at her house like clockwork every day at the same time. She gets a brief little interlude with them, talking with them, and a hug. They made sure that she got birthday presents. One of her volunteers clipped Angelina's dog's toenails. I mean, there are just so many little things we don't think about. Angelina's 96 and losing her sight. Someone rolls her garbage cart out to the street for her and brings it back up. It's all these little things that you can do that can mean so much to someone who otherwise might be sitting alone, isolated, and too proud or too stubborn to ask for help. And there are just so many things we can all do.
Well, Britt, the series was a great community service. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week's program. Remember, you can comment or respond to anything you see on this show by sending an email to letters@floridatoday.com. I'm Matt Reed. I'll see you right here next week on WEFS and FloridaToday.com.